With the recent announcement of Cyberpunk 2077 2 reaching the pre-production stage, a lot of folks have a lot of thoughts, and I'm one of those people. In this video, we're going to talk a bit about Cyberpunk 2077 launch, but my primary focus will be on the story. Cyberpunk 2077 was officially announced in 2012. I personally didn't hear about it until 2016 while I was on a back-to-back playthrough of Witcher 3. Might have actually been my third consecutive back-to-back playthrough. At the time, my favorite type of YouTube video was the typical 10 upcoming video games I'm excited about. I'd never heard of Cyberpunk 2077, but my attention was grabbed by the dark, moody visuals, and as I watched the aftermath of a cyber-psycho attack unfold in front of me, Cyberpunk 2077 instantly moved to the top of my most anticipated list. The development time of Cyberpunk saw me from one relationship to another and a permanent residency move from one end of the country to the other. By the time it finally dropped, I had upgraded my setup to a PC I was sure could handle the game, rather than the PS5 I just fought to the death for in a Costco parking lot. I was in a weird transitory place the first time I sat down to play this game. I had just started a new relationship and was in the process of considering hopping companies for work. My focus was shot, as was my attention span. I hadn't been able to enjoy a game in months, and I was sure Cyberpunk fucking 2077 was gonna fix that right up for me. I anticipated years of playability, just like I had experienced with Witcher 3. I expected immersion, tight, gut-gripping storytelling, and an insane lore system. I was sure this game was going to be the best game ever made. But it wasn't. In fact, it was so disastrous that both PlayStation and Xbox removed the game from their storefronts and issued refunds. Yeah, that's right. Notoriously shit consumer rights, Sony PlayStation issued refunds, no questions asked. Absolutely unheard of. My first playthrough, I played as a nomad. I thought the character creator was cool. I spent way too much time swapping my V's genitals back and forth, and when I finally loaded into the game, I was vastly underwhelmed. I deeply disliked the first-person perspective. It felt weird and disconnected. I felt like I couldn't connect to V at all. Sure, she said cool shit, and the gunplay was alright, but I didn't care about her. I didn't care that an engram was literally wiping out her soul one brain cell at a time. The clothes were lame, and the environment felt empty for what should have been a bustling city. And the color palette of the game was weirdly washed out. I couldn't believe this was the same game I had avidly followed through each new gameplay update. I will say, though, I didn't have any of the technical issues I saw many people reporting at the time. The worst and also funniest bug I experienced was that every time V rode a motorcycle, she would be pantsless. Every bounce in the road sent V's ass cheeks jiggling. To really drive home the comedic genius, I immediately took V to a rubber dock and equipped her with male genitals. Then I helped her steal a motorcycle, and we went on a 20-minute joyride of Night City, dick in the breeze. And that bug was the high point of launch for me. I uninstalled the game and decided to be very wary the next time CD Projekt Red released something. Larian replaced them as my favorite game dev company thanks to Divinity Original Sin 2, and that was it. Cyberpunk became a disappointment and a reminder that no company could be trusted, no matter their track record. Then eventually I saw posts and articles reviewing new patches offering wary optimism. But for the most part, everyone was still pretty bitter about launch. Jump forward to 2023 and Phantom Liberty released. The reviews were wild. Claims of best DLC ever, or major comeback from CD Projekt Red, and don't forget the worn out redemption arc for Cyberpunk 2077. So I did give it another chance, and let me tell you, I was blown away. My second attempt, I dropped in as a corpo. I thought, okay, what's it like playing the scum of the earth? And if you're asking me, it was fucking fantastic. Suddenly, the interactions were tight and personal. For example, Jackie was considerably more standoffish with Corpo V than with Nomad V, and there was always an edge to his voice when he talked about Corpse. Almost like he was calling V a rat, but not quite. Justifiable deniability, I believe a jury would call it. The first-person perspective had changed as well. The movements were suddenly fluid and easy, and the graphics were insanely pristine. The drip still didn't quite drip, but there were quite a few items I found badass enough to add to a rotation. And it didn't really matter because, again, you couldn't see your character most of the time. Also, driving had been super cumbersome and clunky at release, but now it felt really good. I play most things with a PS5 controller, even on a PC, and the feedback for driving was great. Each vehicle drove as uniquely as it looked, and the audio along with it, Thorntons growling down the streets of Night City like hungry predators, and street bikes that you could literally hear the fuel injecting as you hit a higher gear. And the gunplay. Holy shit. I could snipe, knife throw, nanowire, anything else I wanted right through any situation. The action felt fast and satisfying. To this day, I think Cyberpunk 2077 has the best overall gameplay concerning fun factor. But let's talk about the story. As much as I was disinterested in V before, I became 3 times as invested in her this time around. I wanted her to survive at any cost, and I played the game exactly like that. I blasted my way through every merc, ganger, politico, or bystander that was blastable, all in the name of preventing what felt like an inevitable fate of my V. I was determined that she was going to make it to the end of the game alive and happy, and everything else be damned. I didn't expect it to be the immensely emotional journey it would be. I'm going to circle back to Nomad V because it's my favorite backstory. Here's how it played. V leaves her clan after the backers join with Snake Nation. She sees the merger as evidence of the clan's further decline and decides she's better off making a go of it herself. She meets up with a surprisingly charismatic client by the name of Jackie Wells. Jackie has every intent on taking advantage of V and leaving her empty-handed for her efforts, but after a tension-fueled car chase and shootout, he decides to take her under his wing. He tells her no one survives in Night City on their own, and promptly adopts her as his best chum. He shows her everything Night City has to offer, from guns and girls to eddies and cars. They're going to be legends, he tells her, rich and notorious, maybe even with their own drinks named after them at the afterlife. The only problem is, can you be a living legend in Night City? In Jackie's case, no. The heist at Konpeki Plaza goes tits up when Saburo Arasaka flies in to put a muzzle on his scheming son, Yorinobu. Trapped and unable to escape without being seen, Jackie and V watch as a lifelong power struggle between father and son reaches a head. Yorinobu seizes his father around the neck, choking him, the old man's head bashing against the very vid screen Jackie and V are hiding inside of. Yorinobu seems to hesitate as his father reaches a hand out to him. You can see a moment of realization of what he's doing and how absolutely fucked up it is. Simultaneously, he also seems to realize that he has thoroughly screwed the pooch and there's absolutely no coming back from his actions. He'll lose everything from his wealth, his status, his identity, and so Yorinobu Arasaka strangles his father to death. The following sequence finds V and Jackie fighting their way out of Konpeki. Both are injured, Jackie more gravely so, and the biochip they were hired to collect is damaged. To keep the relic from degrading any further, Jackie slots it inside his head. The pair can fight or sneak their way through the hotel depending on your playstyle. In the elevators, when descending from one floor to another, V can see how bad off Jackie really is. He's bloody and exhausted and clearly knows his life is numbered in minutes. Death. Nothing but the final flourish, Jackie had bragged in the afterlife. Inside a Delamain, Jackie slumps over. Delamain tells V that Jackie's wounds are critical and suggests keeping him conscious. You can choose to talk about all the preem jobs you're going to get from now on, or you can talk about his girlfriend Misty, his mom, and all the people he loves. Personally, if I were keeling over in a car while the body that had carried me through a lifetime shuts down, I wouldn't want to hear about work. So for me, V talks about Misty. Jackie knows he's dying, and he gives V the biochip, slotting it into the port behind her ear. And then with V's hand on his shoulder, Jackie Wells dies. I never make it to the other end of the scene without crying. By the time Delamain is pulling up to the no-tell motel, I'm pausing the game and hugging the shit out of my girlfriend. Jackie's last moments and V's reaction is one of the most heartbreaking scenes I've ever watched. You're left staring into Jackie's eyes as they dim, his hand going limp, and the music in the background heightens your emotions. Standing outside the no-tell motel feels strangely surreal and disconnected from V's reality. Jackie is dead inside that car, and here's V still alive, but why? What's the point in living when everything that means something to you can simply be taken away? The futility of it all is stark. And the game's not even close to being finished with V. A confrontation with Dexter Deshawn leaves V with a bullet in her brain and dumped in a landfill. That's what Night City thinks of people. They're commodities, not souls, or certainly not individuals. But against all odds, V wakes up. The relic reboots her like an old Dell laptop and she's back, but nothing is the same. On the biochip is a personality construct, and its ultimate goal is to take over the host body and rewrite the brain. Fill it with a new personality, a new person. And in this case, that person is Johnny Silverhand. The real Johnny Silverhand died in 2023, but his engram was copied onto prototype tech and stored away in the dreaded Mikoshi. To Night City, he was a loud, angry rocker boy who mysteriously disappeared around the time Militech set off a bomb that nearly leveled the entirety of the city. This was an act of terrorism so horrific that in canon it's coined the Night City Holocaust. And I'm going to diverge for a moment and mention the scenes you play through as Johnny during the AHQ bombing are from his perspective. V experiences these memories through the relic, and as you may or may not be aware, Johnny is an extremely unreliable narrator. He's the main character of his own story after all, so even though he presents himself as the mastermind, he was in fact only a participant. So you could say if you're going to hold Johnny accountable as a terrorist, the same would apply for Rogue or anyone else that was present that day. It's a small detail that always perturbs me during the interactions with Johnny. V tends to focus on what a bad dude Johnny was, but as Johnny himself later points out, V's hands are certainly not clean of blood. That being said, I think V's perspective is almost definitely colored by the fact that the relic containing Johnny is literally writing her out of existence. I don't think I would have anything nice to say about the dude either. But that's the poetry of Cyberpunk 2077. V's first interaction with Johnny is violent and angry. He literally forces her to beat her head into her apartment window to the point that she blacks out. The scene is deeply uncomfortable and disturbing to the point where I tend to grimace and teeth grit my way through it. When she wakes up, he tells her to man up and eat lead before realizing he is the invader. He is the virus intent on V's eradication. And that realization changes things for him. Like all of V's relationships in the game, her relationship with Johnny is complicated. You can play it a couple of ways. You can despise Johnny for what the relic is doing to V and remind him of it at every turn. Or, slowly, you can watch as V becomes his friend. Johnny is the only constant for V. Through every experience, he's there, adding in his sometimes unwanted 2 cents. He's arrogant, rude, and an all-around dick. In fact, when he convinces V to allow him to control her body to follow lead on Atom Smasher, he promptly buys a pack of cigarettes, gets shit-faced, starts a fight that he loses, and tries to finger bang a random woman who then crashes the car, nearly killing them both. When V wakes up in her own body, she's throwing up, injured, and has a new tattoo. And that's the kind of friend Johnny is. But, adversely, after an attack that leaves V nearly flatlined, Johnny takes V to a hotel by the ocean called the Pistis Sophia. When V comes to, he tells her about fighting in the Mexican conflict and a soldier who gave up his life for Johnny's. He shows her a hidey hole that contains that shoulder's dog tags. He promises her, "I will do you no wrong. When the time comes, it'll be my life for yours. I'll agree to get wiped." Because that's the kind of friend Johnny Silverhand is. There's a duality to Johnny that's deeply human. He's not a bad guy, but he's not a good guy either. He's just a dude with his own personal perspective and convictions, ruled by his impulses and his fucked up sense of morals. As the game progresses, V will begin to change. Against her will, the relic is slowly replacing her mannerisms, impulses, and even facial expressions with Johnny's. There's actually a conversation where Rogue mentions being able to tell the difference between V and Johnny because that mean smirk could only come from one of them. But suddenly, V, never a smoker, constantly craves nicotine. Dialogue options open up, allowing for observations that will have Johnny commenting things like, "You remind me of me when I was younger, just without the impressive cock." By the end of the game, you're dressed in Johnny's clothes. You have his gun, you have his car, his sunglasses, his dog tags, and it makes you wonder, who the fuck are you? Are you still V, or are you becoming someone else? The entire game is one woman's, or man's, for the male Vs out there, struggle for survival. V spends her time desperately hunting down leads in hopes to stop the relic's destructive progress through her brain. Each time, she is met with disappointment. Each time, she's closer to death than she was before and has almost nothing to show for it. But she keeps coming back, and you watch her grow. She goes from a solo nomad merc out for fame and money to someone who can act change, sometimes for the better. You watch her learn to care for those around her, building relationships and helping her friends through their tough life situations. From Judy fighting for the betterment of the dolls to the Aldecaldos struggling to find their place in the world. She hustles gigs and decides the fate of the Voodoo Boys and even rescues the NUSA Prez. She is exposed to people from all walks of life, and through it all, she conducts herself with empathy and compassion. Or, well, she can. It really depends on your playstyle. But I will say, as fun as blasting shit is, the story doesn't truly open up unless you're willing to give it time to breathe. Ultimately, you watch as V confronts mortality and rises from a nobody to somebody Night City will never forget. Phantom Liberty deserves its own analysis, so we're skipping that here, but I will say, the best DLC ever rep it has, 100% earned. So, would I say Cyberpunk 2077 is the best game ever made after all those patches released like chagrined apology notes? Maybe. For me, it's a uniquely replayable experience that I consistently revisit. I never get tired of it. It's a game that makes me think about life and the kind of person I want to be. I guess that's the key, right? Making you think, making you self-reflect. And if it can do that, I'd say it's a pretty fantastic piece of art. Wouldn't you agree? Well, that's all for me today. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I would love to know what you think about Cyberpunk 2077. Don't forget to toss a coin to your Witcher on the way to the bar, and I will see you in the next one.